Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today I'm doing a narrative battle report for our Battle of Endor. This is a 1400 point game. I'm going to talk about the lists and then we'll dive right into the gameplay. I have sped it up significantly though because it was going to be like a 4 or 5, 6 hour game. It was kind of crazy. So Sean is running a mostly thematic list with a few adjustments. It's an Akbar fleet, about 4 MC-80 type ships, a couple of assault frigates, a couple of CR-90s, a Pelta with the new fleet command, a lot of named squadrons. There's a Yavaris in there and a bomber command center. Very, very bomber centric. I think over 300 points of bombers, where I had only like 100 points of fighters, but most of my points were in the Executor 2. I maxed this thing out, really liking the linked turbo lasers on this thing. 2 Simoons, 2 Kuats, and then a couple of other things. Iden Versio and the Corvus, that was a fun one. And here we're going to do setup. I sped this up tremendously because I don't think anybody wants to sit through 4 hours of battle. Now, I think the mistake was only doing this on a 3x6. So first, I deploy the Corvus first, knowing that I can redeploy it afterwards. So I figured I'd just kind of deploy it in the middle there. And I think one of my strategy at the beginning of this game is kind of, trick him. I also did have an interdictor there. So in the top middle, a little bit on the right, I put that, that 0 speed area. So he's measuring to make sure he's got some of his ships deploying outside of range 3 of that little gravity rift, or that gravity well, I should say. He did get 2 CR-90s off to the right of it, and my thought process here is that I'll just deploy the SSD all the way on the right, get that free move at turn 1 with Jerjerrod, and Ozzel, given it the free move right away, and then I'll activate first, and maybe be able to kill both CR-90s right away. That at least was my plan at this stage of the game. I think Sean was a little surprised by some of my stuff because we spent so much time putting these lists together. We forgot to really look at each other's list before we started. So here I am. I don't wait until the end to deploy the Super Star Destroyer. And this is tactically because we realized very quickly that part of our folly was doing so many points on just a regular 6x3 board when this should have been like a 9x3. However, I only have so much room, even though I have a nice new gaming table, and it's, well, a moderately decent new gaming table. It's certainly big, but it's not 9x3. So I started to think, boy, I'm going to end up running out of room and not being able to place this. So let me place it while I still have time. And so I place it that way on a little bit of a right angle. I end up putting some Simoons out far to the left, and the idea is I wanted the Kuats to be protecting the flank of the Superstar Destroyer, and in case he ended up putting, like quick CR-90s over there, I'd have a Kuat on the side, and to be able to kind of cover its flank. The good thing about the more expensive version, though, and there's a Kuat off to the right. On the far left, I have 2 Simoons and then another Kuat on the kind of in the middle. That's it. Now, the red Star Destroyer at the bottom left, Sean actually loaned me. He won that one from a local tournament here that was doing prize support with Seraphim Studios repaints. And Seraphim Studios is, they do repaints, and they're based here in Orlando. Really nice job. And it's actually, he did a fantastic job with that particular ship. So I figured it was kind of cool. So I swapped out the Chimera model for it since I'm not using the Chimera. And and then this is a slight little change. I have a Quasar in there, and and now Sean's starting to run out of room during his deployment, so he's getting some things that are kind of fishy in there now. Now the new fleet command that he's using on his Pelta does give all of the ships an extra yaw at their last movable idea, so that's good. And while I do have that 0 speed aspect going on there for like that blue Liberty is one of mine, and I'm redeploying Corvus here, by the way. And I'm like, well, that wasn't as cool because I don't have nearly enough room to redeploy it. So I'm going to do my Ozzel move here, and I wanted to get a shot on his Liberties, and also I did the 2-speed move, and it was way more of a move than I thought. So I'm still, so now I don't have a shot on the CR-90s at all anymore, but I do barely have that Liberty, and I'm like, oh, well, I could go first, because he's at speed 0, and now he can't spend any defense tokens. So instead of stalling and trying to take advantage of the huge ship stuff, I think I decide to go ahead and activate the Superstar Destroyer first, And now the thing that stinks is I've got the quad turbo lasers on there, and I don't get the extra blue because he's actually going slower than me, even though I deployed at speed 1. He's actually at speed 0. But I don't mind going first in this case because a ship with 2 braces not being able to use any of its defense tokens is a beautiful thing. Now he also has the quad battery turrets or whatever they're called. So yes, so I take concentrate fire. Well, I have the weapons expert, so I just churn all of my commands to concentrate fire whenever I want them because I have the Ravager title and I wanted some built-in slicer tool defense. We check for obstruction, and yeah, I'm gonna roll some dice. It is a lot of dice, and I think I end up getting 5 hits and completely draining the front shield on that first shot. It's hard to focus on the specific die results here, and I think we would really have to slow the game down a little bit. But I take some extra damage with Jerjerrod for the 2 turns, and this is one of those reasons why I absolutely love Jerjerrod. He just makes a Superstar Destroyer awesome. And then I use this little Gazanti to just pass concentrate fire tokens, so I can have this Executor 2 proccing the intensify firepower each turn. So that's a lot of fun. And yeah, and then he starts moving some stuff forward. Now we are not using objectives in this game. So Sean has running 11 activations and I'm running 9. We each do have one way to stall. His blue Liberty there has the strategic advisor, and then of course I have the Superstar Destroyer's ability to pass. But we both find ourselves, in a tricky predicament. Since his strategic advisor is the speed 0 ship, he has to be very deliberate on when he activates that one now, because next turn I could potentially kill that ship if he doesn't activate it first. But since we're not using objectives, we're just going to be alternating. So Sean won the bid, so he gave me first player first turn, and then he'll take first player second turn, and then we'll just keep rotating back and forth. And that is, I think one of the best ways to do these really, really big games, because like 15 points from an objective is really kind of insignificant when you have 1,400 points or 2,000 points or however much is on the board. But it's it's an optional way to play. That's one of the ways that we play. Just makes things a little simpler. And a lot of this first turn is just moving, but these are long rounds. We spent a long time setting up, and I think we didn't finish this game until almost 2 a.m. So yeah, there was definitely a lot there. But here he goes, and he's taking a shot at my Superstar Destroyer, and that is, I think, a moment where I realized something too. Is I had never wanted to use the Executor 2 before because primarily it's I don't know if it's really efficient for its points. Like because it costs almost twice what a regular Superstar Destroyer costs. So a lot of me were like, well, wouldn't I just rather run a couple of Simoons with it for the same value? I get a whole lot more dice, and different activations and all of the extra things you get with extra ships. But what I love about the Executor 2 with its 33 hull and its substantial shields and firepower virtually everywhere is that it really has no weaknesses. And you can afford to activate it early and drop it right in front of their whole fleet because they're not going to be able to kill it. I mean, obviously, mathematically, yes, it is possible, but it's really, really hard to kill it. As a matter of fact, it's actually a really, really hard effort just to get it down to halfway hull because of the fact that it's got 5 shields on the side and then 5 shields on the auxiliary also, and then 6 shields in the front and then even 3 shields on the rear. It's just strong everywhere. So it's just got stuff for days. So I'm keeping that Raider kind of far in the back, and the Raider's actually a pretty nice thing with Iden Versio and the Corvus. I've got the new I've got heavy ions on this one, the new weapons team that turns an accuracy into a crit, and then of course disposable capacitors. So you're almost guaranteed to trigger heavy ions no matter what. The only way you couldn't do it is if you happen to just roll all hit results. So yeah, you're definitely guaranteed, virtually guaranteed to roll that. I just got to get range, and then it gets survivable with Iden Versio being able to spend those evades at even at close range, which is a lot of fun. The Quasar, in this case, actually has 0 upgrades, and it's got tokens already because on turn 1, Sean popped Hondo Anaka, and so we got a couple extra tokens right away, which was kind of funny. But yeah, so I'm liking the Quasar for this particular battle. I know there were no Quasars at the Battle of Endor, and but that's just one of the things I decided. I had exactly enough points for the cheaper version of the Quasar, and as much as I'm going to need these ISDs trying to nav because it's going to be crowded and it's going to be hard to not crash into each other here. It just made a lot more sense for me. And this is a crowded board. There's a lot of accidental bumping. There is some sloppy play here. It's, I think when you're playing a game this big, you're not playing it to be super tactical. You're not playing it to be ultra serious and all of that. I think you're playing it just for the theme and for the fun of it. And so we kept that as the spirit here. We didn't mind the occasional bumps because there's just so much more. It's such a crowded battlefield, and you're starting to see I'm kind of trying to spread some of my fighters around, but because Sean had put a couple of A-wings in the center, so I dropped all of my stuff in the center, but then he put all of those B-wings and Y-wings over on the left-hand side where my fighters just can't really catch up to them, at least not right away. And so here's them shoulders blocking the shot here. This is a new camera shot, by the way, too. So I'm trying some different angles, and I've been trying some different things with my battle reports also. So we're getting a couple of early engagements of some of these Hera giving some of the other squadrons rogue, and they're going after some of my interceptors, which also have counter, and trying to get some damage done. But I think he does manage to take one interceptor off the board by the end of this first squadron phase at the end of round 1, and that's basically what we're kind of ramping down on round 1 right now. So yes, that's basically what's going on over here. I'm liking the formation flying over on the left hand side. I've got from left to right, I've got Simoon, Kuat on the left that are kind of all lined up and they're starting to slow down. Navs was actually really useful here. I'm not a fan of, here we are at the beginning of round 2, I'm not a fan of always navving, even though a lot of people are. I prefer that more aggressive dice-driven, concentrate fire, extra dice, that's my preferred playstyle because I really tend to enjoy that. But yes, I can't deny that Nav is huge. And it happens. It really helps, and it was very helpful here because I was able to slow these guys down. I was able to speed up the Kuat to get into black dice range, slow down the Simoons to kind of stay at their most effective range, and that worked out. So Sean goes first. Second turn, he does activate that Blue Liberty, puts him back up to speed 1, and is able to now use defense tokens. So. So he's attacking and definitely draining shields. He's got the XI7 also. And the interesting thing here is he's running Mon Carin on that blue one. So when he does attack me, I used to always say that Mon Carin and XI7 is kind of a waste, but against a Super Star Destroyer, you're a whole lot more likely to be able to use multiple defense tokens. And this was a case where it actually Mon Carin came in use. We're doing a lot of squadron play right now. So yeah, I'm trying to just send my ties to stall and slow down his bomber fleets, and like I said, he brought like triple the amount of fighters I did. So I recognized very quickly that that's not going to work. But I did get a TIE bomber to get a shot in, I think, on one of his ships, and I happened to roll that hit crit, which is beautiful. Yes, that was right at the front of his assault frigate. And then there goes, and I bumped one of my little TIE fighters with that Quasar. But the Quasar did pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It was for a completely unupgraded ship. It did well, and I was very proud of that little Quasar, at least on the first turn. And of course, the squadron game. This is a reminder of how much more Armada could be improved in my opinion, if they didn't have squadrons, and if instead it was some other, whether it was cards or another type of dice or just an upgrade. It's like, oh, you have squadrons, you can launch them by exhausting this card, and then like if it was just something that wasn't physically on the board that didn't require all these precise measurements, just because squadrons slow down the game so much. You could play a 1,200 point game. But like if we had a couple of Super Star Destroyers and big heavy loaded up ships, we could play a 2,000 point game in 45 minutes. If we didn't have small ships and squadrons and all these extra activations and extra things to do. And that's one of the things that we noticed. Now, I am actually using some of these little damage counters on some of my ships to mark them, so I'm not having to deal out a whole bunch of damage cards, and they're really cool. They're the little 3D printed damage counters I did a review on like a couple of years ago. It was they come in really they come in handy for big games like this because I don't like to have to put a lot of stuff. So and there's a few zooming ins, and a lot of the maneuverability here is pretty tricky. So we're doing some of the zooming in and then some of the zooming out. So a little bit of that, but most of it is the static viewpoint here. So yes. So now we are. Now I think I'm going to try and kill that. I'm stalling here with the Superstar Destroyer, and of course he. It's one of those things where you start to once you lose a ship, because Sean was ahead of me by 2 activations, but he had to go first here, and now it gets tricky because he went first. And he had to go first with the ship that he had his Strategic Advisor on, so he lost the ability to do Strategic Advisor. So then I'm able to stall and now kind of make him have some tougher decisions. And so it gets to this point where anybody he moves is going to have to move somebody into my firing line, and it has to be, I guess that assault frigate as the sacrificial lamb. And now my Kuat, I think, has a black dice shot on that assault frigate, so I'm kind of just biding my time at this point. But since I stalled, I think Sean was able to activate that. Yes, he is activating his GR75, which I would have had a shot on and could have killed had I not stalled. So this was actually a misplay on my end, as I believe I had medium range on that GR75, and with all the upgrades I have, plus it was faster than me, so I was at least had a blue die even if it was at long range. Might have been able to kill it, and and I had leading shots, so even if I didn't roll the accuracy, I could have spent the blue die, re-rolled everything else, done concentrate fire with Ravager, added 2 extra dice. It would have just been insane. So probably could have killed that, and then it wouldn't have mattered if I hadn't stalled, because then I would have still been up in activation. So these are the things that happen when you have over 1,000 points on the battlefield. You kind of make some mistakes from time to time. So we're I'm checking range here. I think, I'm activating the Superstar Destroyer at this point. And one of the things we're going to do is, we're doing a squadron shot. We've got Callus getting some extra dice on all of these squadrons. We have the linked turbo laser battery, the linked LTT, the new turbo laser upgrade that comes in Rebellion in the Rim. It's amazing on this ship because here you have you can use it on the Superstar Destroyer because it has turbo lasers, but you also have red squadron dice, and it doesn't say when attacking a ship, it just says when attacking you can reroll a red die. So every squadron attack you can reroll a red die, and since this is I think the only ship type that can use that, because your Quasar, even the red die Quasar, does not have turbo laser. So it just turns into this amazing thing, because a red die with a reroll is really effective against squadrons, because you have a much better chance of getting damage, and you can even get 2 damage if you roll that double. So just an amazing thing. And then of course if you have Callus, now I'm thinking, boy, I might actually want to add red dice instead of black dice. So I do very much like that. But yeah, so we're having fun with the anti-squadron attacks, and and this is a good build for the Superstar Destroyer. And of course, we're doing. Oh man, I love it. I love Jerjerrod making that hard turn, because you swing around from the rear guards, it swings your forward arc so very far. And the problem is I landed on obstacles at the same time, and as well as landing on the station, so I have to take 2 damage to shields, but I do heal 1 damage card, which after taking some shots from that Liberty, or both Liberties, I had a couple of damage cards. I think I just took damage from the blue Liberty right there. So I think I had 2 damage cards on me at this point, and I healed 1 of them, but I did lose a couple of shields by landing on some debris, which is definitely problematic. So, but again, this is another thing, is I don't mind putting myself in front. And what's amazing in this particular example, I don't know if you can really tell, but the interdictor at the very back, that's almost touching my edge, is going to impact the black Liberty on the top right. Is going to impact his shot, because the Superstar Destroyer is both defending at range 1 right here, as well as within distance 3 of the interdictor. So I'm able to hit targeting scramblers and cause that guy to have to re-roll some of his damage. Now, it's not quite as super effective in this case because he has the SW7s, so even his unspent accuracies count as damage. So even if I force him to re-roll and he ends up with accuracies, they still add damage. So unfortunately it's not, but I did at least reduce the damage, I think, by 1 by doing that. But I just think it's fantastic how big the Super Star Destroyer is, and having a little interdictor flying behind it helps it prevent against those range 1 attacks, which people will want to get close to you and try to roll their black dice against you. That was a really fun one. So we're going over here. They are down. I think Sean is down that assault frigate at this point that my Kuat was able to just blow up with a really nasty shot. And the cool thing about the Kuats is that I put the expanded launchers on them, so they are running 5 black dice in the front arc plus 3 red and 2 blue. So they're just incredible from the front. And in a big game like this, there's not as much flanking because it's so crowded. It's not that hard to line up front shots with something like that. And that's kind of the plan. That was the idea. And now I put him in a deadly spot because he's now able to be shot by a lot of those squadrons. And here comes Yavaris. And Yavaris has got the ability to activate squadrons after he moves. So he's going to get in position, activate a couple of squadrons. And I think Sean is actually going to, instead of going for the double tap in this case, he is actually using it as a normal squadron command and sending some squadrons out to try to disrupt, my blockers that are in there tying up all of his other bombers. And it's a little more beneficial to him in this case to do that because you could get a double tap, or if you can take out that one TIE fighter, now your 5 other Y-Wings can actually activate and be of use. So that's kind of what happens here. And he's doing some damage to squadrons, and I'll give you a little spoiler warning. My squadrons don't last terribly long against his squadrons, but they do manage to slow some things down. It's kind of hard to distinguish from this. And that's one of the things when you get a bird's eye view of the entire battlefield. In this case, it's hard. It's easy to lose some of that definition and lose some of that precision of what exactly is where. It's one of the reasons why I kind of like that I base my ships and squadrons in that white base, because it makes it a little bit easier to see whose is whose. But the purpose is slightly defeated in this case because the 2 blue Mon Calamari ships are actually mine. Sean borrowed those for this battle, and when you're sharing ships, that sort of thing becomes a little bit less important. But now my 2 Simoons are going to start taking fire from Nora Wexley, who comes in and begins draining shields very rapidly and letting all these B-Wings next to her also start draining shields. And there's also Bomber Command Center right in front of my forwards Kuat in the very middle. That's just kind of under that gray Kuat that is just in range of all of those B-Wings, and they're all getting their re-rolls. And I am using that expert shield techs in this case to, even if my shields are gone, I'm able to still reduce that damage by 1. And that's what happens right here. Very useful, especially when somebody like a Y-Wing or a B-Wing or whatever, when there's 1 crit. And there was a case, I think one of the X-Wings rolled the red crit, and it was going to do nasty stuff, and I'm like, I'll just reduce the damage total by 1. That does... First off, that I don't lose any shields that way. Second off, I don't take any critical effects that way. So it's just amazing. So here goes the Corvus, kind of creeping up, still nice and slow. Don't want to take too many hits, but I want to kind of position the Corvus to where maybe they can activate disposable capacitors next turn and do some magic. And that's, I think that Corvus is going to be one of those titles that's a lot better for a regular game. I don't think it really shines in a game like this where the whole board is just totally full, because the Raider just can't really maneuver, and the Raider can't, and that Corvus can't really take advantage of its redeployment, because where else can it go when the whole board is full? So that's one of the problems that we run into having. And there's also a lot of bumping too. So a lot of the A-Wings and a lot of Sean's squadrons get run over and get pushed to the back and then have to catch up. But I guess it's less of a problem for A-Wings when they're speed 5 and can go wherever. So he's taking some extra shots. I think that Pelta is activating Akbar at this point, taking a side shot on the SSD and the Ravager. I love the Ravager. That's my favorite title. I had mentioned in my list building that I did not want to use the Executor. And I think somebody was commenting saying that it's, that, oh, it's better than you think. Well, no, I get that the Executor title is good. It has some really good uses. It's not my play style. That's all. It's just not my preference. It does have some good mechanical uses. I definitely get that. So my interdictor moved up. It's just staying right behind the SSD. It's kind of in a bad position right now. And some of those CR90As with turbo laser reroute circuit are getting some damage done. This is one of those times where it'd be nice to have evades on the SSD as well, but I think that's a little not too thematic. Oh, and a big thanks to viewer Thrawn, who actually mailed me a little 0. If you just saw that in the in the clip, I guess I just got this in my PO box too. I guess some people had noticed, or somebody at least had noticed that I didn't have a little 0. It had fallen out or something like that, and so he mailed me a little 0. And so I mentioned that in one of my live streams. But yeah, big shout out thanks to Thrawn. Of course, I don't know exactly who that is, but I thank you regardless. And so now here goes my Kuat on the far right, getting in position to get some range 1 shots. There's a CR90 that's kind of underneath that you can't really see underneath the SSD, and we are there. We go. And we actually have 2 range 1 shots, and since I will be going first next turn at turn 3, I can see that Kuat on the far right hand side actually has 2 range 1 shots to try to maybe eliminate 2 more ships. And I'm at a point right now where any ship I can eliminate at this point is going to push me up to possibly having activation advantage. So that's feeling really good. But at the same time, my SSD has 2 Liberties at very close range. Some of them are double arced, so I'm feeling like in a game this big, being the first player becomes less of a crucial thing. So at this point, my 2 Simoons are firing at his flagship, which is the black MC-80. And this is a real travesty because I have all of these dice. I have Spinal Armament and XI7, and it's really amazing how he does make sure that my front tack is obstructed because he's got the chaff token on the front. But I end up only rolling 2 damage against him. I mean, I get the accuracy, so I stop him from bracing, but he redirects 1 and then takes 1 on the front. And I was like, what an opportunity with XI7 to really roll a lot of damage, hopefully be able to stop the brace. And what's terrible is I didn't actually roll 2 damage. I actually only rolled 1 damage, and Intensify Firepower allowed me to get the second one because there were so many blank reds. It's days like this that make me wish I was still running Vader as my commander. I've not really been running Vader as often, and he's a great commander. And sometimes it just seems that when you have him as your commander, the luck ends up being with you naturally, and you don't need it. Here we go, more squadrons, bringing these ships down. I know these 2 SSD or these 2 ISDs on the left are getting weaker and weaker, and I believe the one right now has almost lost all of his shields, and so it's not looking good. I don't know how many more turns I have left at this point that I'm going to have all of those ISDs on the board. But at least they're positioned to do some damage to his flagship before they go. And this is, I believe, his flagship's doing an Akbar attack. Yeah, they see more bumping of ships accidentally. Yeah, and so we're doing some of that. We're doing that type of attack, and we are measuring things. And I said before that there's a lot of bumping. Oh, no, he activates the assault frigate first and can't make it through, so he bumps. He bumps his flagship. So he puts a little bit of damage on both of them. But that's actually smart because had he actually made it through, then he would have probably been in a position to take damage. So my far left Star Destroyer is the last one to go. And I think at this point all I can do is take 1 single shot on his flagship, but then I've got gunnery team, so I can also flak. And since he's got all of his bombers right there, I start flacking 2 black dice on all of these, and that ends up doing a lot of damage. I don't kill any, but I think I get at least 1 to 2 damage on every single B-wing and Y-wing that's there, which is really a beautiful thing, because a few sustained rounds of that, and then you're going to have this one turn where they just all like you start dropping 2 and 3 every anti-squadron shot. So that is a very fun thing. So at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm going to speed up, because I had a nav token again, and I was like, oh, that's going to put me really, really close, and I don't want to get double arced. So I'm like, well, let me do this. Wait a second, and then I realized, wait, I could also I could slow down because I had a nav token also, and oh yeah, I was at speed 3 already, and so I decided to take my nav token and no nav command and just slow down to speed 1, and that's the beauty of nav. It was really, really useful, this game, for me, and I don't always preach how important nav is, but at least in this case, it worked out well. Still not my preferred playstyle. I prefer to just rush at you and throwing as many dice as possible, but we can't always stick to our vices. Sometimes we have to break out of our comfort zone and try a couple of new things. So yeah, so here we are. His flagship, I think, is attacking. And I don't remember. I don't think he did Akbar, because I think he just did a front shot first and then a regular side shot. I think he was trying to do that, and that was why I really wanted to slow down. Because if I had got any faster, that MC-80 would have had that red ISD in his right arc, and then he would have my other ISD in his left arc. So he would have really had a field day with dice. And I wanted to stay in his front arc only, so to really kind of minimize his dice. And that's a great little shoulder shot of me right there. That's one of the downfalls of having a camera angle at this point, to be perfectly honest. And then, of course, we come into bumping all of the ships. Oh, but he doesn't make it because he bumps his own ship. So he stays right there, and we have to try to put the squadrons back the best we could. And again, that's one of the things about, hey, it's just a casual game. That's another thing but that happens a lot in Armada, where squadrons get moved and they don't, they're not always exactly where they were. So you have to really remember, right, who was engaged, who wasn't engaged, to try to remember those important things. There I am putting damage markers on the tops of the Star Destroyers. 1 damage on the Quasar as well. And I really like those little damage markers. They're very cool, and they look thematic too. It looks like there's a little explosion coming off of the top. And I don't remember what we're measuring. We're doing squadrons, so I believe this is the end of round 2. And Sean is a little worried right here because, I don't know if you can really see a whole lot of where the front of that Super Star Destroyer is, but he has that blue Moncal at range 1. He's also got the black Moncal, both Liberties, at range 1 on the other side. And but at the same time, I also have this Kuat right here in the middle, this gray Kuat in the middle of your screen that has a couple of ships at range 1. I've got side arc on the front of that GR-75 that's you can barely see. At the beginning of turn 3, here we go. And I decide to go with my Kuat in the middle first instead of the SSD. I figure I'm going to take the chance because that Kuat has taken a couple of damage and has lost all of his shields. So I know that Kuat is going to die soon, and I believe he actually spent a lot of his defense tokens already. So I take a side shot on the GR-75. I get it down to only 1 health left. And I'm like, well, crap. Oh, I'm like, wait a second. Oh, I can just ram it and finish it off now. So then I take a front shot. It will be obstructed, but it's still a lot of dice because I have expanded launchers, and I do have his flagship at close range. So we roll a lot of dice, but I don't get the accuracy. So even though I roll about 10 damage or so, he is able to brace it. And that's really unfortunate. I hate rolling that much and ending up without an accuracy. But these things happen, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, and the MC-80s are just insane. It's just MC-80 is just a great survivable ship. It really, really is. So then he activates his Black Liberty because he's trying to activate these Liberties because he has a feeling they're going to be dead soon. As a matter of fact, that Black Liberty was double arced by the Super Star Destroyer, and you can't quite see the exact lines, but he was double arced front and right, and so he's shooting me. I'm able to use the interdictor to kind of force some dice to be re-rolled. But he doesn't get that much damage. I think at the end of the day, at the end of this attack, I have 4 damage on the Super Star Destroyer. And while he did break through some shields and put some damage on there, I humbly remind him at this point that my hull value is 33. So while 4 damage may seem like a lot, this ship isn't going anywhere. It's got 33 hull, and that's really, I think, a liberating feeling. Feeling like I can just activate the ship anytime I want to. It makes, honestly, I think it makes you feel a little bit overconfident. So then, I think I'm going with the Kuat on the right, and he is going to, he activates there. He kills that CR-90 that's directly in front of him. Then he takes a side shot to the rear of Jaina's Light, which is the other CR-90. Does not actually kill that one, but gets some damage on it. And it gives him a crit that says he can only attack a ship once. During his activation, only one of his attacks can target a ship, which is actually a pretty good crit for it, considering it has a lot of shots right now. And then the Kuat just kind of moves to get in a position to, in case that black Liberty manages to survive, I can make sure that I have a killing blow on it lined up for the next turn, also cutting off its escape. We don't need to destroy them. We only need to keep them from escaping. So this is very much, reminiscent of the Battle of Endor. Now, I will point out that I recognize that it's the Death Star 1 playmat here, but, I'm using what I got. Sometimes you just got to work with what you got. So it's a modified Battle of Endor. In my version, we actually completed the Death. We did double our efforts. We did complete the Death Star on time. So I'm not sure what's rolling right now, but I think he is actually trying to. Wait, who is he activating? Oh, he's activating the Blue Liberty. Yes, he wants to try and see if he can get that guy out of my front arc at this point. And there's a lot of thinking going on right here. So. It looks like it's a freeze frame, and that's one of the reasons why you have to, or I had to speed this up. This was, I'm not recording in between rounds, but this was over 3 hours of footage that I sped up to, I think, like somewhere around 45 minutes. So this way you could kind of get a little bit of the entire thing, but I don't think you guys want to sit through, a full 3 hours of stuff. And so his Liberty moves and is not able to get out of the front arc. And on top of that, I have my front arc to the side of his Liberty, which is a little weaker. Now, he is using the techs, the new engine tech, so he bumped up the sides a little bit, but it's just not enough to really make it safe. Although it is nice on the Liberties. So we're doing some counter because he's activating squadrons, and I believe he's activating his flagship at this point to try to take out my Kuat. And that's one reason I activated my Kuat there in the middle first, because I knew he was in like this kill box where he was going to die almost no matter what. So I wanted to activate him early. I activated the Corvus, and we flipped disposable capacitors. We were able to drain some shields, even though it was an obstructed shot to the front of his flagship. I was able to drain some shields because I got that blue crit, and I love that. I love that card. I think it's a great ability. And now he activates his flagship, and he's going after my Kuat there. I think it has 4 damage on it right now, 4 or 5 damage on it, and I think it's lost all of its defense tokens and all of its shields. So. Yeah, because I was very liberal about spending braces, even if they were exhausted. I was going to stop that damage. I wanted there to be no damage on my ships and then of course it comes off. So he does remove it. I'm not as worried about it because at this point, you got to start taking ships off the board. You've got to when there's this many, and I feel like he did his job. He took out some ships. He put a big hurtin' on that flagship, and here's where I know that Akbar is going to die this turn, because that's Akbar in that lead flagship. And if I can take Akbar out, I can stop all those other ships from being able to get extra dice out of their side arcs. So that's kind of, I think, where we find ourselves at. I think I go to activate the Quasar at this point, trying to do some anti-squadron shooting and seeing who we can activate. And we get this TIE fighter to move up and tie up a couple of squadrons. But actually, no, I decide to then actually go up and take a shot on the Liberty, and I get a damage on him, which is a really nice, satisfying thing when a single TIE fighter can put a damage on somebody. Then the bomber goes up and takes a shot and gets another damage. So pretty good job from the Quasar, and then he does a couple of anti-squadron shots, and that's about all we have. We don't have range on anybody else, and so we're going to go ahead and move. And I'm liking that little Quasar. I can say I had never been so happy with a ship that had no upgrades before, performing admirably. You know, he did, and that's exactly what he did. He performed pretty admirably right there. Getting damage on the Mon Cals and doing some anti-squadron and staying alive, too. I guess because he's not such a big threat on the board. You look at a ship with no upgrades and you don't think it's that big of a threat. And so if you can actually, yeah, if you can adequately fly a ship with no upgrades, then you can fit a lot more ships into your list. And I believe this assault frigate is activating and taking... Oh yeah, gunnery teams with Akbar. Very, very strong. And of course he wants to activate that now before Akbar dies, so he can make sure he gets the most out of each of those shots. And this puts a big hurting. And well, you can see I'm putting extra damage tokens on that far left Star Destroyer. He is very close to dying now. I think he's at like 6 or 7 damage on him right now. Whereas the more lighter gray one in the rear there is still got a few shields left, and now he's starting to take damage. I think he just took his first damage point. And so, yes, those guys are not going to last long, especially the one on the left has all of the B-Wings and Y-Wings completely surrounding it. And they have enough hull that even another salvo of anti-squadron attack is not going to kill them all. So right here we're going with the Simoon to, I believe, the flagship, and we're getting a couple of shields on there. And I have his side arc, it looks like, so I can avoid that obstructed front arc. And yeah, I think we got a pretty good roll there. And there was a lot of ink, not that many blanks showing. And then I think we do some anti-squadron shots with the other shot, because that's kind of the biggest threat. And if I can manage to bring some of them down, maybe I'll have an ISD survive. That is kind of the ultimate goal right here. But yes, so many individual roles for all of those squadrons. A really nice alternative to having to do that is like a Victory Star Destroyer with H9 and Warlord. Every die roll you could potentially turn to a hit, so you don't even have to roll, because every possible roll ends up as a hit. So you just say, all right, everybody that I can hit, 1 damage. You know, you can really kind of take the shortcut that way. But I don't think there were any victories at the Battle of Endor, so I didn't use any here. And I'd like victories because you can fit a lot more into a list and it makes an SSD look even bigger. But yep, and I think he's going with, what is he activating? Oh, he's activating Yavaris now, is that it? Yes, Yavaris. He rolls 3 into the Quasar, which is able to redirect. And there goes Yavaris, getting close, activating some more squadrons. And, you know, that's, I think, a mandatory upgrade on Yavaris is to have that officer that lets you activate your squadron command after you move. So you can really stay at a safe distance and stay at that long range where your defense tokens are most effective. And you know, then move in and then activate afterwards. I really like that. I do. And they're doing more damage. And I think at this point he has taken out almost all of my squadrons. I think I've only got 3 squadrons left, and they're the ones in the middle of the board, closer to that blue Liberty. So here we go. I think I'm activating the far left Star Destroyer before it gets blown up, and I get that front shot, and we do take out Akbar. So that's beautiful, and I guess I have some anti-squadron on the rest. So we have a little bit of flak we can do, or we can go after Yavaris. So I just decided to go after Yavaris instead, because I don't think I've got enough. You know, so I think we bring down Yavaris's front shields, which is pretty nice, because I was able to get 2 accuracies and stopped his brace, and his double brace, which is nice. And so we were moving forward. Oh, so it was the gray one that I activated this time. It was the other one last time. Okay, so I get out of order. And that's what happens when I have to go back and narrate these games sometimes. But it's looking pretty good now. I still have lost 1 ship, but he is down 3. So that, and including his flagship, which is very good. I was actually surprised Akbar was on that one and not that little blue one in the back that's in relative safety. But I think that can also just happen when you realize that Battlefield is now starting to fill up, and where can I put these people? It's almost like in a game like this, you should do a practice deployment first. And, oh yeah, and I'm using white damage now to mark the different ones because I'm running out of tokens. So the only good thing I can say about my situation right now is that, well, the SSD is still alive, but those ISDs on the left, at least their damage is kind of split almost evenly between them. And that is, I think, something that you want to try to avoid if you can. It started. He focused on trying to kill that one on the far left first, but then a lot of his ships only had a shot on the other one, so I kind of forced him to have to split up a lot of that damage. So now I'm going with the Superstar Destroyer, and we're going after that blue, the blue Liberty first, and I spend a blue die with leading shots to reroll a whole bunch. And I think I've got it, but then we kind of made a little mistake that he was looking at the wrong ship, so he actually needed, I was just short the amount of dice that I needed to roll. So he's like, wait, he's still alive. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean he's still alive? Like, he actually had 2 more health. And I'm like, all right. Or how are we going to figure this out? All right, here's what I had. This is one of those things that would be a disaster if this was a tournament. But we come to a pretty good conclusion here. It's like, all right, well, I didn't spend my concentrate fire yet, so I'll add 2 more blue dice with Ravager, and I got 2 damage out of that, and that made up the difference. So he takes it off, and we're good. Now that does mean I don't have concentrate fire again for the other Liberty, but I still have 2 more shots, and so I have a side and a front that because I have him double arced. So, and I'll do the side shot first because I get a black die on the right arc, which is really nice. I love how those the Superstar Destroyers get some black dice on the sides, which is really cool. And now I'm figuring out the front shot to try to go for the coup de grace here. And Intensify Firepower is just great. And Linked Turbolaser LTT for giving you an extra red die reroll is also just really, really, really nice. And yeah. And so I get him down to like 1 health left. So it was not enough to kill that, because that Black Liberty hadn't been shot yet. So 2, close range Superstar Destroyer shots in a row was not enough to completely kill it. But then I decided to bump it with Jerjerrod, which is the last damage to kill it. However, bumping it put me back where I was. I had to take a damage to bump it, and then I landed on the obstacle again. So I actually had to take a lot of damage to bump it because I was landed on the debris cloud again. And we also realized I was actually overlapping 2 debris clouds, so I ended up having to take 5 damage to bump and kill him, which is a real pain in the butt. But I mean, it was worth it because otherwise, I might have had another shot from him next turn. So killing 2 Liberties in 1 activation, one of them was full strength. I will take it. 7 days out of the week, I'll take it. And this is, I think, the part where it starts to really go downhill. This was kind of, I think we end up kind of at the end of this round starting to kind of call it at this point, because we kind of realize that that there's not a whole lot more that he can do. So that's one thing I think we end up winding down with. So yeah, that's I think that's basically what happens. But let's see, he's got this CR90, and at this point I've still got so much health left. But the interesting thing is between the ramming and my shield's running out now with I had been taking so many shots. The Superstar Destroyer is starting to get a lot of damage on it. So you see how I had a whole, like, almost a damage deck of it. I think I'm at 13 or 14 damage at this point. So his CR90 could potentially put me over the halfway mark. And so that's like I think that's like the rebellion player's goal in this game, is that's what Sean is trying to do. Is it's like, I probably can't kill this ship, but if I can get it to at least half damage, well, that's over a 500 point ship. So that's 250 points just if I can get it to 16. And 16 isn't exactly easy, but considering how much I like to concentrate fire and choose not to engineer, now granted, I think all engineering commands queued up. Because I don't need to nav because I've got Jerjerrod. And I don't need to concentrate fire because I've got the weapons liaison or the weapons expert. So yeah, and this is where we just start kind of adding up the values, because I think we call it at this point and we say, okay, what would happen? And we determine it would be pretty close. So that is basically how it goes. You know, we think I had it by about 100 points, but yeah, that is about the game, guys. So I'm going to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this type of battle report. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment to enter that giveaway. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great one.